Ooh-wee. Hustling, bustling. Ooh, I gotta get it together. I had a little personal setback, but it's not gonna hold me down. I'm going to got to just get stuff together here. I tell you, it's been a little journey, but like I said, I'm gonna hustle and get it done, get it done. I'm back, y'all. Welcome. Living with the reality, truth, and consequence. I'm your host, M. Backham. Pay very close attention to this opening scene here.
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. We want to stop this epidemic. We need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We now see mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected
these
them.
Things can be
and
used,
we also see a change.
These tools can be used for good, and they can be used for evil, for bad, as they should not be. But evil flourishes when good men do nothing. So it's the choice that we have, the life that we want to live, and those who choose to do evil or bad, well, then let them live amongst themselves. They've just proven disagreeable to live with. But it's about depopulation here, everybody.
Embedded in his hand is a microchip that serves as his keys, his ID, and his wallet.
Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition?
In a matter of seconds, the chip is inserted. The transformation is complete.
When scanned, all of a person's information about their vaccination status is shown on a reader or phone.
Now humans...
The public-private partnership, the stakeholders, also known as the stakeholders. High tech is so seductive, but we do not have to accept it.
Developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. Humans are now hackable animals.
You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
Far less of the ability to live as humans or speak out was not very hopeful.
I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
Sentient biotech, the attack of humanity. The brain trip. Interfacing, they're changing us, they're turning us into a product, a cash cow, so to speak, and killing us at the same time. Yeah. And as we die, slowly, they profit off of our suffering that they have imposed upon us.
But human rights are just like heaven and like God. It's just a fictional story that we've invented and spread around. It may be a very nice story, It may be a very attractive story, we want to believe it, but it's just a story. It's not a reality. It is not a biological reality. Just as jellyfish and woodpeckers and ostriches have no rights, Homo sapiens have no rights also.
The average person, meaning who loves a family and to have the choice to drive a vehicle of their choice and that they can afford, and energy, we'll just say, and have energy. And since the U.S. Has produced and does produce the cleanest energy on the planet, but it's the U.S. that is being denied to produce energy here on the planet. You scratch your head, but then you just, you say what is, and that's exactly what it is. So we must admit.
Many, maybe most legal systems are based on this idea, this belief in human rights. But human rights are just like heaven and like God. It's just a fictional story that we've...
that what they're telling us they're doing, showing us that's being done, you can see it. And if you want to see it, if you don't want to see it, well, sometimes you have to just look a little further, look a little deeper. Just look a little deeper.
And you'll see in Demolition Man that all of that is obviously there. We're only going to play some clips of it, so I suggest you go back and revisit it. I think it's a pretty entertaining action film and extremely informative. But again, in this review, I'm going to go through it as quickly as I can. The whole thing starts with a police officer that got too overzealous going after the bad guys, so he's been sentenced to cryo freeze. And while you're in the frozen animation, they put a chip in your brain, a Neuralink, that reprograms you and prepares you for when you get released in the future dystopic society that is masquerading as a utopia. And I'll just skip to the end of the movie here before we get into the predictive programming. And it's just classic. The guy that's taken over the world has done it through a manipulated stock market crash decades before. And it's like a BlackRock type company. They've banned eating beef. Again, they've banned having sexual intercourse between each other. Everything is virtual reality. But he doesn't have enough control. And there are a lot of people that live in these underground ghettos. And the globalists talk about in the future, those of us that don't want to live in their compact 15-minute control grid prison cities, well, we can just live in some ghettos somewhere if we can feed ourselves. Well, basically, this is in the future, and the villain, who is, again, the utopian liberal on the surface, he unfreezes a super criminal from the past, played by Wesley Snipes, so that he can come into the future and take out his political enemies. And then, of course, the supervillain thinks that he will then be able, using the brain chip, to just deactivate the supervillain. But of course, that doesn't go the way he thought it would. So it's got false flag attacks in it. It's got all the real stuff that governments throughout really modern history have been obsessed with, but have also engaged in throughout history being.
Like-minded people believe what they're doing. Biological warfare. An unstable future act. No, just an unstable future, and then act accordingly, knowingly.
As the Soviet Union was collapsing and the Cold War coming to an end, George H.W. Bush publicly announced a new campaign of American dominance, which he called the New World Order.
This is an historic moment. We have in this past year made great progress in ending the long era of conflict and Cold War. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
You see, I'm bringing you some water from some of the water from some of the wells that I drink from. Do your own research. You know, that's the motto of living with reality, truth, and consequences. Is do your own research and to satisfy your own intellect. Yes, satisfy your own intellect.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Vladimir Putin told Oliver Stone that in the year 2000, he asked President Clinton if Russia could join NATO, which he said made the American delegation very nervous. They were not interested in world peace. They had different plans. In 1997, the Project for the New American Century was founded by William Crystal and Victoria Nuland's husband, Robert Kagan. In September of 2000, they published their agenda entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses, which outlined an ambitious and aggressive plan to achieve world dominance, starting in the Middle East and ending with Russia. The document acknowledged the fact that their world domination efforts would trouble American allies and could therefore be a long process absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. A year after publishing this, 2,000 people were murdered in the World Trade Center and blamed on a small terrorist group created by the CIA. And with this catastrophic and catalyzing event, the plan for a new American century went into action.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me and he says, "We've made the decision, we're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq, why?" He said, "I don't know." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, "I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
George H.W. Bush's son, George W., began a propaganda campaign to sell the American public on overthrowing Iraq.
I take the threat very seriously. I take the fact that he develops weapons of mass destruction very seriously. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
When the lies became obvious, George W. made jokes while reveling in the blood of the innocent.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there.
Secretary of State Madeleine Albright said that murdering millions of Iraqi children was worth it.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
The power-hungry cabal, made up of close-knit families who practice multi-generational child abuse and mass mind control, began overthrowing sovereign nations, and murdering innocent civilians became the new norm for U.S. foreign policy. But their plan for global domination was failing, and starting in 2020 with the COVID scam, they began targeting U.S. citizens. They have become desperate, and they are going for broke, slaughtering innocent Palestinians to spark a war with Iran, and sacrificing the people of Ukraine to hopelessly take on Russia. These inbred families are getting old, and they are fighting for their lives. There is too much at stake for them to ever give up, which makes them more dangerous than ever. But they are few, and we are many, and they must be stopped.
You know, we've been told that, you know, in the scriptures it says that my people perish for the lack of knowledge, for they reject knowledge, rejected knowledge, and reject knowledge. Well, don't be of the rejectors, you know, accept the knowledge, gain more. Again, Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Open that book up. Those books. We got these gadgets in our hands. We got them in our hands. Just work right now, study right now while it's daylight, because it's like nighttime is coming soon. Not to scare, but just to prepare. Not to scare, just to prepare.
Being recorded. And if you go back to the creation of the theoretical design of the internet when it was declassified in 1960, it was created by government psychologists, psychiatrists at DARPA, where you would indeed have computer terminals in public everywhere that would make sure your programming was going correctly and would surveil you, and then they could surveil all of us in live time with handheld computers. They just said as soon as they could make systems small enough to do it, which they did, they would then use all of that to have the central computer AI systems control us and turn us into automatons. So again, they addict us to these devices, and then once we're totally programmed and addicted to the devices, they're not just entertainment things anymore. Now they are our watchmen. Now they are our controllers. Now they are our prison wardens, and we don't know how to live without them. If you look at Gen Z people and millennials, they are completely dependent on phones. Hell, I'm already completely dependent. They're incredibly useful. So they knew how to design these Trojan horses to make them very, very, very seductive.
I am your host, M. Backham. You've been tuned in to Living with Reality, Truth and Consequences.
They call it replacement migration. Oh, but Sacha Baron Cohen says that if you say that, it doesn't exist, even though it's on the UN website and official. No borders, no walls, no Europe or USA at all.
And I took the time to play some of these host minds. I call them political and scientific minds.
Show. The big lie of the Royal Commission that set the whole world on its course of the modern eugenics paradigm, 1949, look it up, in England, that was adopted as U.S. law in 1973 under the State Department Memorandum 200, look it up, it's declassified in 1991. They said we're going to block development in the third world, use their overpopulation system as a bomb to destroy them and make them abject, then we'll go in and clean up later and sterilize them. And we'll use that giant excess population to leverage out the West and dominate our indigenous populations that are politically dangerous to us. We need to neutralize them first.
I'll be introducing this new format, and I'll be getting with this space on X. Yeah, so that maybe we can maybe we can go live one day soon. And thank you for listening. I pray that you take everything that's been said in good spirits and do your research. Satisfy your intellect. Assalamu alaikum. Hafazu Stedley. Corazón. Suave, suave.